Today, once again, we're discussing Russian crimes against Ukraine. Unfortunately, it continues, but it's great that in this assembly we discuss political aspects and the legal aspects together. I've been a member of this assembly 6 years already, but I think only in the recent weeks I became very scared of what happens in the world so much. Before coming here, I faced 2 big attacks in Kiev with a lot of massive drones and ballistic missiles flying over my window and doors. This is what we face every day, but it was the first time when I felt that things are getting so much worse. We often feel powerless, because it seems that this war has changed all international order, all laws, regulations sometimes don't matter anymore. But in fact, there are areas when we do have a power to make a change. When I feel very often powerless and hopeless, recently the situation of the prisoners of war and recent prisoner swaps and exchanges that we had actually gives me a hope. We do have a power to facilitate the exchanges and to reach some next steps for possible negotiations for peace. Despite all regulations that Geneva Convention has on the prisoners of war, Russia doesn't comply with that rules. And for us, the only fulfillment for us, Ukraine, that Russia actually agreed to fulfill recently was to arrange these exchanges. And recently in Istanbul, with attempt to establish these peace negotiations, luckily we managed to get more than 1,000 our servicemen back. And let me tell you more about the shape and the situation of the prisoners of war and what they are facing. Various international monitoring mechanisms, such as UN, Independent International Commission, and ICRC and Human Rights Monitoring Mission of United Nations, had verified that there are many violations that include ill treatment, widespread and systematic torture, summary executions that are regular and often filmed on camera. There are verification of execution of 71 Ukrainian prisoners of war and recorded the deaths of at least 21 prisoners of war in custody. While the real figures are much higher, we cannot have the exact number, but we know that there are hundreds of these cases. Ukrainian prisoners of war are denied access to adequate nutrition, medical attention, legal advice. They are not held in appropriate places of detention. They are subject of verbal, psychological, physical, sexual abuse. They are not permitted to communicate with their families for weeks, months, and even years. And unfortunately, the current tracing system that should identify all detention centers of these people, that is governed and organized by ICRC. Unfortunately, ICRC is not capable to identify all these places because Russia doesn't allow them to do so. International Committee of the Red Cross is not permitted to fulfill entirely its mandate to provide the medical care and to appoint a mixed medical commission to examine sick and wounded prisoners of war, because Russian Federation has so far rejected initiatives and also initiatives by other states to assume the role of protecting powers. So all the regulations that we have on that, Russia is denying. Unfortunately, these systematic tortures in various detention facilities suggest that there is a huge endorsement by the Russian civil and military authorities at the highest level. Dear colleagues, you do have the power to put an end to this and to do everything to facilitate the repatriation of the Ukrainian prisoners of war. I want to emphasize that you do have this political power, because we are very grateful to every member state that maybe doesn't have a mandate to do so, but is being creative and is acting as a mediator to help us to return as many people as possible. And I want to express the gratitude to Turkey and to United Arab Emirates to help us with the prisoners of war. Please, let's use this creative governance and mediation possibilities to bring more people home. And let's do everything possible to insist on strengthening the tracing, identification system and medical care capabilities of ICRC, and more importantly, on insisting that Russian authorities will accept what is already available in the regulations. You do have the power to support the prisoners on their return home by providing more political, financial, material, and technical support for establishment of such mechanism. Consider the identification of a neutral country where prisoners of war could be safely returned home later. Finally, I would like to emphasize that this resolution highlights the importance of accountability, and by calling all states to support the work of International Criminal Court, Tribunal, and make sure that we use the instrument of universal jurisdiction to prosecute Russian officials involved in war crimes and other crimes. These decisions are needed not only for Ukrainian prisoners of war, but to every prisoner of war of the future and who is currently suffering from many, many violations. We need to amend this international system of humanitarian law and provide more capabilities to protect prisoners of war. Doesn't matter where they come from. Thank you.